Welcome to Rooted in Retirement with Zach Gray. Zach is the founder of Rooted Wealth Advisors and is one of the nation's leading financial advisors, helping people answer some of retirement's biggest questions, covering topics like income, taxes, and Social Security.
So this is a place where we have to be really concerned about how much of this money am I going to keep?
Zach is here to make sure you can enjoy the retirement you deserve. This is Rooted in Retirement with Zach Gray.
Outliving your savings is the number one fear for retirees today, and for good reason. With skyrocketing healthcare costs, increasing taxes, and the never-ending threat of stock market volatility, it's no wonder many retirees feel overwhelmed. But Zach Gray is here today to share top strategies to help you find success in retirement. Welcome to Rooted in Retirement. I'm Kelly Dame. Zach, great to be back with you as well today.
Excited to be here with you.
So we've talked about this. No two retirements are exactly the same. So let's talk about some principles that we really could all consider for a successful retirement.
Well, I think that what you just said is what we need to lead with. It's never right to be listening to your friend or your colleague or your neighbor on exactly what they're doing for retirement. And we see this a lot where folks come into the office and they say, hey, well, I've got a hot tip on this, or I was told that, or I think we should be doing this because, well, my neighbor's successful and he or she is doing so. It just doesn't seem to work all that well. We need to make sure that we're tailoring this to the unique needs that we have because, as you mentioned, there's a lot of threats out there right now, and that's something that we need to try to diffuse the best way we can.
So there are a lot of factors to consider when it comes to retirement. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about why we need to plan to live a long time in retirement.
Well, I think it's because we never know. Sometimes we hear this story of, you know what, my dad only lived to be 75. My grandfather only lived to be 70. Zach, if I get anywhere near 80, I'd be surprised. Maybe, but what if, right? Like, what if we live longer? And I think that that's critically important as we start to think through our planning process. Thinking about really those keys that we've talked about, really those 5 areas, those 5 worlds as we call it. Are we going to get the income we need? Is that going to last all the way through our retirement years? Our investments, that's probably where some of that income is going to come from. Taxes, which we speak a lot about here on Rooted in Retirement. Even thinking through healthcare, legacy, Kelly, those are critically important steps to be checking as we go throughout the planning process. And I think that really makes folks a lot happier, a lot more confident, because as you led with, the number one thing that we hear, and if this is at a workshop, maybe at a junior college or a university, we even do some dinner workshops where we invite folks to come on in for a meal and we can share a little bit about what we see in the markets or see, in terms of a financial planning view. We ask them to write down, hey, what is that number one concern? And we get a lot of chuckles out of some of the things we read, whether it's, something related to politics or you name it. But I tell you, every single time when we collect those back from the folks in the room, it might be written differently. It might say something about like, am I going to be okay? But it's really circling back to, am I gonna have enough? And that's why we say, take you to and through retirement.
So let's talk about that process of planning to help people make it through to a long retirement. What does that look like?
Well, I think it's earlier the better, and starting to take a look at all these components that I just named, really those 5 worlds. And that's not just a rooted wealth thing, that is a CFP thing. That is ultimately what they're drafting that entire designation around, and that is where we really look to start as a planning team. Once again, are we going to have enough to take us through those retirement years? And not just that, let's make sure we maximize that. Social Security, there's a lot of different ways, hundreds and hundreds of ways of which you can take that benefit. Let's make sure we're getting the most for it. Pension maximization. Let's make sure that we're stretching those dollars the best that we possibly can. Then, of course, looking at investments, the fees with that, how are they built, the risk of those things. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, taxes, we'll get into that later. And then looking at healthcare, it's the number one cost we have. And once again, finally, legacy. But I think it's really important for folks to really take a look at all of those components and work with someone that's a fiduciary that's really taking that comprehensive approach.
Yeah, you can see with all of those different factors just how important it really is to get that comprehensive, customized plan. I want to take a minute to talk about that tax reduction report. You said we talk about taxes. Here we are talking about taxes. Tell us what makes this report so special.
Well, you know what? This tax reduction report is something that our team puts a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of effort into. In essence, we're going to tailor a plan for your unique situation to make really the best that we possibly can, from strategies and tactics to stretch your hard-earned money. We want to do this now, right now, before taxes go up. We know that things are about to sunset with today's tax code. So Kelly, I think it's extremely important for everyone watching here today to go ahead and opt on in. It's free, there's no cost, and it's a lot of value.
So there really is no reason to waste any time. Zach, sounds amazing. So here is your chance to get your hands on this tax reduction report from Rooted Wealth Advisors. Call 855-955-6868 to secure yours today. It doesn't matter how much you've saved for retirement. There are a lot of elements that are going to try to take the piece of your pie. So let Rooted Wealth Advisors help so that you keep the most of it you possibly can. Remember, there is no cost or obligation. Once more, the number to reach them is 855-955-6868. Here's your chance for professional planning, helping keep what you have worked so hard for. And we'll have some more important insights coming up. Zach helps you tackle some of the biggest risks to your retirement. And then later in Digging Deep, you've probably heard us talk on the show about risk tolerance, but how is that different from your risk capacity? Rooted in Retirement continues right after this.
Did you know taxes could be your biggest expense in retirement? No one can avoid taxes completely, but with the right strategies in place, you could potentially reduce your taxes in retirement. And reducing your taxes means more of your hard-earned money right back in your pocket. Call now for your free tax reduction report to uncover your future tax savings.
I'm back with Zach Gray, and today Zach is sharing top strategies for retirement success. Now, Zach, there is no retirement without income. So it's, of course, something that everyone is going to need. How do you go through income planning when it comes to helping people with that retirement success?
You know, income is definitely the outcome that we're after, right? It's without it, you know, you just don't have much of a retirement at all. And so I think that looking at really, what are the hopes and the dreams and the wants? I think sometimes, Kelly, we don't spend enough time even with that. And I think that that's really what gets my team energized. I know it is for me. When we sit down with folks and we can say, you know, tell us what that dream retirement looks like. Because many times I think we're so focused on just getting by, or we're frankly a little scared that are, you know, answering these questions, are we going to be okay? Will we have enough? That sometimes leaves us in a point of just more survival than it is to really thrive in retirement. And it's so fun to unpack that with folks and say, hey, not only does it look like we're going to be in a good spot for retirement based on kind of what we laid out for an income plan, what about those dreams and the hopes, right? And how do we want to handle that? You know, is it something you want to make an impact with the kids or the grandkids? Is there some bucket list trips? Even thinking about legacy. You know, we've kind of talked about those 5 components. We don't really touch on legacy a lot, but how do you want those funds to be handled maybe when you're no longer here on earth? Those things are important. And I think it really brings in energy to the planning piece.
You've even talked on other shows just about when people come in and once you talk to them, seeing them release that sigh, right? And just start to think about all of the good things once that they feel a little more secure. So in continue to talk about income planning, how do you help people be tax efficient with that?
Yeah, I think number one, it's figuring out where's the income going to come from and what is the tax that's going to be associated with that. You know, is it going to be from a pension? That will be dollar for dollar taxed, right? So if we have that cash flow coming in, you know, many folks don't even know this, Kelly, but when you look at Social Security, it's not all going to be taxed. Now, granted, I think there's a good chunk of it that will be, you know, but there's a chance that 0% would be taxed. 50% of it could be taxed as well, or 85% is the highest tier. My point though, Kelly, is this. Many folks don't realize that not all of that's going to be taxed. My point is, as we start to think through where are we going to fall on that tax ladder, we talk a lot about taxes on the show, that's important to realize, okay, where are these cash flows coming from? Oh, and by the way, where does your money even sit? What type of investments do you have? We have some folks that the majority of their money was put into something like a bank account. It's literally that simple. It's kind of a non-qualified account is what we title it in our world. However, many folks, and I would say this is the majority of our viewers here today, it's going to be sitting in a situation of that money sitting in a tax-deferred account. You're waiting to get taxed on that money. And so, of course, rising taxes, things of that nature are obviously concerned there because, well, we're waiting on pulling those dollars out. Or lastly, tax-advantaged or tax-free type of investments. So where does it even fall? Where are we going to pull the money from? And quick little story, we had some folks come in here not too long ago and say, hey, we want to buy a motorhome. I think to myself, Kelly, that's fine. You have a fair amount saved. How much can a motorhome be? 50, 70,000, maybe 100,000. I think what they meant to say, Kelly, was like Garth Brooks, like motor coach, like home on wheels, right? It was expensive, okay? I know there's been inflation and so on, but nonetheless, big cost. And so my point here though now we're looking to say for us to get the income needed for that, the cash flow needed for that, we might want to pull some from here, some from here, and even some from here. Not taking, kind of a one-sided approach to where we take those funds. So I know that's a lot, maybe it's too much, but I want folks to understand and hear that you really have to look at all the cash flows you have coming in. You also have to look at where does your money sit, and once again, how much will be taxed, because it's all about, once again, in our world, understanding a dollar is a dollar. We respect that, and we want to keep as much in our hard-earned pockets as possible.
I think that's pretty much a motor mansion at that point that you were probably looking into there. But also you've got a tool, the tax reduction report. Tax reduction, it just sounds so nice that I'd love to talk about when it comes to income planning and other ways to help with retirement. Let's talk about that.
Well, I tell you what, in 20 years of helping folks to and through retirement, I'm not for sure that I've had one raise their hand and say, you know what, I can't wait to give more money to the IRS or to Uncle Sam. And if you're watching today, I'm going to make the assumption that you are like the majority of folks that I've met over my several decade career at this point. I want to step you through our rooted retirement process and maybe show you some ways that we could stretch those dollars. Maybe it's the income ideas we just brought up, but really that tax reduction report is something special. You're only going to find it at Rooted Wealth Advisors. It incorporates things like our SRT, which is once again trademarked, only used here at Rooted Wealth Advisors, to make sure that we're using strategies to transfer as much as we can to that tax efficient or that tax advantaged type of account. And it's really important to us to look at all avenues of ways that we can once again stretch that hard-earned money and give you that confidence that you're going to be okay, that you're going to be in the best spot possible in retirement.
It's such a valuable strategic tool, Zach. So if you would like to get your hands on this tax reduction report, again, it is only from Rooted Wealth Advisors. You can call 855-955-6868 to secure yours today. It doesn't matter if you've saved $500,000, $2 million, $10 million, or more for retirement. Don't miss this opportunity. Remember, there is no cost or obligation. Call 855-955-6868. Don't hesitate to dial it now. Straight ahead, we'll dive into diversification to help you address risk. You've probably heard about risk tolerance, but how's that different from your risk capacity? That's next in Digging Deep. And still to come, Zach answers your most pressing questions on retirement. You are watching Rooted in Retirement.
No one can avoid taxes completely, but with the right strategies in place, you could potentially reduce your taxes in retirement. When you take the time to put the right strategies in place, that means more of your hard-earned money stays in your pocket, not Uncle Sam's. Call Rooted Wealth Advisors now for your free tax reduction report and uncover your future tax savings.
Does all the political rhetoric have you confused? Let's cut through the confusion together. In addition to your very own tax reduction report, I want to offer you a resource that helps you plan regardless of who is in the White House now and into the future. As the retirement landscape changes and new tax policies are put in place, let's protect what you've worked so hard for. Call now for your very own tax reduction report, and our team will include this important guide that speaks to you about concerns of political uncertainty now and into the future.
In today's Digging Deep, Zach helps us understand how much risk we can stomach versus how much risk we can afford. Zach?
Thanks, Kelly. And now for my favorite segment, Digging Deep. So you might be thinking to yourself, Zach, what are you doing with this Rad Dad t-shirt on? And I will tell you, most of the time that you see us on Rooted in Retirement, you know that I am in at least a suit, sometimes a tie. And we believe that we should be professional. But for this particular segment, I couldn't wait to share a quick story about a trip that my family and I just did to Disney. And the reason that this relates is just because you can take the risk, as we've been talking about throughout the show today, doesn't necessarily mean that you should. And I say that it correlates to this trip because of this reason. So my youngest twins are 4 years old currently, and they happen to be able to ride on most of the rides at Disney World. They are 40 some inches tall. You can get on most of the rides. If you're 44, they get on most of them, all but one or two. So I, of course, want to make the most of this trip. Probably like any other rad dad out there, you want to make sure that that money spent, that time spent is the best that you can do. So I go ahead and say, hey guys, here's our plan. I'm going to lay that out, and we're going to be able to hit all these different rides because we can all ride on them as a family. Our twins happen to be the youngest, so our older two daughters, well, goes without saying, they can join us as well. So we step up to the roller coaster. You can tell that my young twins are a little concerned about what's going to happen here. How's this ride going to play out? And, well, as this picture might describe, just because you happen to be 42 inches tall doesn't necessarily mean that you should be riding the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. That's me, of course, in my Rad Dad t-shirt, and you can see my youngest daughter right next to me, and it doesn't look like she's enjoying things all too much. Yes, she can enjoy the ride if she wants to. The question is, should she? And that does bring me to your retirement. Just because you can take the risk, should you? You know, I've referenced some loved ones of mine. I can reference many clients of mine that frankly are living on maybe even just their Social Security, or maybe just Social Security and pension, or maybe there's some property income coming from farm ground or rentals. Those things combined, they're more than enough for them to pay the bills. But does that mean that they go and take the risky investments that are out there? No, because everyone does have that risk tolerance. How much can you actually stomach? How much of the roller coaster up and down are you willing to deal with? That is a question that you need to answer for yourself. And you need to, once again, make sure that you're building a plan that is properly going to support your income, but also going to supplement your emotion. Because I know this, sometimes there's data and there's emotion involved with most of these financial decisions. Emotion is going to win nearly every single time. So make sure that you're building a plan that not only is right for you in terms of your financial decision, but make sure that it's right for you in the emotions that might come along the way as maybe the market goes up or down. Because just once again, because you can take the risk doesn't mean that you should. And I believe that maybe one of the ways you can mitigate some of the risk that's involved with your portfolio circles back to taxes. We've been talking about it throughout the show. Our tax reduction report is completely unique to you. And it's a way that we've been able to help folks save tens of thousands, even sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars with their hard-earned money throughout their retirement years. We'd love to show you how. And it's as simple as calling 855-955-6868. One more time, that's 855-955-6868. Kelly, back to you.
Thank you, Zach. Have a question about retirement? Don't go anywhere. Zach has the answers coming up in our Q&A segment. Rooted in Retirement continues right after this.
Did you know taxes could be your biggest expense in retirement? No one can avoid taxes completely, but with the right strategies in place, you could potentially reduce your taxes in retirement. And reducing your taxes means more of your hard-earned money right back in your pocket. Call now for your free tax reduction report to uncover your future tax savings.
Does all the political rhetoric have you confused? Let's cut through the confusion together. In addition to your very own tax reduction report, I want to offer you a resource that helps you plan regardless of who is in the White House now and into the future. As the retirement landscape changes and new tax policies are put in place, let's protect what you've worked so hard for. Call now for your very own tax reduction report, and our team will include this important guide that speaks to you about concerns of political uncertainty now and into the future.
Well, you probably have questions in retirement, and we've got answers. Or at least Zach has all the answers. Let's get into it. All right. So this question is from Mitch, and he writes, I just inherited some land from my grandfather. I'm not sure if I should hang on to it for now or go ahead and sell it and invest the money to put toward my retirement savings. What should I consider before making that decision?
Well, Mitch, I will tell you, I come from a farm family. This is a conversation piece that has been generations long in my family. And so what I would say is really important here, Kelly, is to really look at, well, what does my picture look like? Do I need that cash flow? Because it can be really nice coming from property like that. Or, do I really want to manage this over my lifetime? Would I be better without it? I think that those are questions that you have to really search for and really ask about, because I don't know that it's going to be right for me to just simply answer a question to Mitch or to anyone here on the show without knowing more details. So, Mitch, I would be questioning, do I need that cash flow? How would that look as a part of my picture? Do I need liquidity for any emergency needs or anything of that nature? What I don't know is really keeping me from answering the question. As a fiduciary, of course, we only get pieces of the information here on the show. But I think just really working through that income plan, seeing if it's something where maybe you even have the option, can be a great idea. And once again, something that we would love to step Mitch, you through, or anyone watching, to look at seeing what does that income plan look like? And once again, what's the best way for me to make the most of it?
It all just starts with a conversation with you. Well, here's one from Sharon. We're working on our retirement homework. We have more than $2 million for retirement. So how much of that should we budget for healthcare and long-term care?
Well, this could get expensive. And once again, it's an unknown, Sharon. But Kelly, you know a little bit of my backstory. My grandfather, one of my biggest role models, Gramps, that's his nickname. He paid out of pocket for about 18 years for my grandma Marilyn to have skilled nursing care. And it was at a point where he needed to do so for her safety. But I tell you what, it took a big bite out of his savings, as you can just understand. And I think that it's really important for folks to look at, well, what is this cost going to be? There's a lot of ways that you can help mitigate that. You could have traditional long-term care insurance, though I will say that there's a bit of heartburn there that if you don't use it, you kind of lose it most of the time. Maybe it's a life insurance type policy that has some accelerated benefits. That could be something that at least you can rest easy knowing, hey, if I never use it for long-term care, that I've got a really nice benefit that goes to my family. Maybe if it's $2 million plus, maybe you can end up in a position where you could just self-fund it or, juggle what's my risk on that. But I will say, at least looking at it, because 70% of Americans over the age of 65, you heard me say it before, you're gonna need some sort of care. So if you are not looking at some ways to maybe mitigate or think about healthcare, I would really urge you to do so. We would love to show you some ideas, because once again, it's not what it used to be only in the long-term care space of either pay it or have traditional long-term care. There's a lot of hybrid options out there. And Kelly, we would of course love to show more.
Well, this next question is from Stuart. Will my wife get my Social Security check on top of hers if I die first?
No, probably not. And the reason I say that is you're going to keep the highest of the household. So if there's 2 checks coming in, we're only going to keep the highest one. So Kelly, I think looking at that's important though, because we can really start to strategize on what makes most sense. If we have one spouse that has a really, really high number to their benefit and the other of which is maybe significantly lower, that starts to change our thought process on when do we pull those dollars out, when and how should we take those. And here's a little nugget that most people don't maybe hear in this light. I think the wealthier you happen to be, potentially the earlier you take Social Security. So that's something that we can get into sometime on a show, but I think it's really important to understand that to simply answer this question, no. You're only going to keep one of the 2 Social Security checks.
Okay, great insights. And I do want to get back to what we've been talking a lot about through the show, and that's that offer that you have, the tax reduction report. Taxes are a big piece of the conversation when it comes to retirement. So let's talk about that offer one more time.
Yeah, with this elections and so on coming around, with all that we're seeing in the world, as well as the fact, and we've talked about this on past shows, the rising debt load that we have as a nation, I do believe taxes are likely to be going upwards. And it's not just my belief, that's the way tax code is written. So my question to you, the viewer, is what are you doing about it right now? And my hope is that you're looking at some strategies and some tactics to make the most of what you've worked so hard for, to protect that, to keep it within inside maybe your family, make sure your spouse is taken care of. Maybe it's children or grandchildren that are part of the conversation. But this tax reduction report is a customized plan. It's tailored just to you, and it's built to maximize that hard-earned money that we've been talking about. We all know that it's not necessarily what you have, it's how much you actually get to keep and put, in your own pocketbook or your own purse, if you will. I want to make sure that we get that in your hands today, and it's really a part of the offer that, in my opinion, is unresistible. It's free, there's no obligation, and of course, we would love to have you call into the show and see where we can help.
So now is certainly the time to start thinking about those tax strategies. A lot of valuable information in having your own tax reduction report. Here's your chance to get your hands on that tax reduction report from Rooted Wealth Advisors. Call 855-955-6868 to get yours today. Remember, there is no cost or obligation, so don't wait. Call 855-955-6868. And Zach, thank you again as always for your insights today.
You betcha.
And of course, thank you so much for your time today. If you want to learn ways to generate lifetime income, potentially reduce your tax bill, and maintain your lifestyle in retirement, reach out now. Zach and the team are ready to help you start building a retirement plan designed to help you flourish in retirement. For Zach and the team at Rooted Wealth Advisors, I'm Kelly Dame. We look forward to seeing you next time on Rooted in Retirement.